Alright, so in this video I want to talk to you about threats to the good life so that you will be able to protect the good life conditions that you've built up, right? So, and we're almost done with the training, so hang in there with me. Thanks for going this far. I promise you won't regret it once you start applying this knowledge in your own life. So, basically, in the last video, I finished up with saying that you're going to begin to notice that you're not the only one involved in the behavioral shaping process, right? Now, what I mean by that is that there are uh, three types of change agents who are going to try to stop you from making these positive changes. Or I should say there's going to be two that will try to stop you and one that will not prevent them from stopping you. Okay? And what those are the villain, minion, and bystander. So bear in mind that people are people, and there's nice people and there's not so nice people. But what I'm describing when I talk about these change agents is I'm talking about an individual's ability or capacity to initiate and or sustain a positive change. Okay? Now, bystanders are bystanders. They stand idly by. They do not engage in, building up or managing the psychosocial health of the social environment in which they live, work, learn, and play, because they're bystanders. They stand idly by, right? So their problem is they don't get involved. As a change agent, they do not initiate any change at all. So what does this result in? It means that the bully, the villain, the abuser wins automatically because the bystander won't stop them. They won't stop the bully. They won't intervene to protect a hero or a sidekick from the damage being done to them by a bully. The bystander will not intervene on their behalf, right? They don't get involved. So right away you know that if you see somebody who they seem to be, socially disengaged, they don't care either way about helping you to succeed, maybe they don't try to stop you or convince you not to pursue your goals, but they're just not impressed by it, and also they don't really seem to get involved with anyone else either. Maybe they just want to watch TV all day long and spend 40 years sitting in their living room chair, right? That's chances are you're looking at a bystander. They're kind of standing by in their own life, right? Not really participating. So second is the villain. Villains are what I'm describing is character, habits of thinking and action, right? Another way to say this is your life management style or your impact management style. It's the way that you're likely to impact your environment, right? Finally, you could describe it as a managerial style. So Joe is in the habit of managing his circumstances like a bystander would. He doesn't really get involved in his own life success. Then villains, on the other hand, they do get involved, and they also fight to protect what's theirs, so they can initiate and sustain. But guess what? It's not a positive change, right? It's a destructive, negative change because it's bad for other people who the villain is trying to dominate and abuse or exploit. And it's bad for the villain who is going to be losing those social relationships very shortly as people begin to resent him or her for what is being done to them. Now, the third type of change agent that is going to be a problem for you if you're trying to create a positive change in your life in your social environment, especially as that relates to building up a healthy social environment. That this kind of person is the minion. They might be a very powerful, wonderful, good person, but when it comes to standing up for what's theirs, they can't do it. And that's because they are afraid of social punishment. So all the villain has to do is come along and threaten to hurt them in some way, to cut them off from the family, or to punch them or kick them or call the cops and lie about them or anything like that. Throw their CDs out the car window going down the highway, break a coffee pot, fake a suicide call to 911. I've seen a lot of this type of stuff in my life. Uh, these are people who, when confronted by a villain and antisocial behavior, these people will roll over and play dead. And they do that in order to protect themselves from harm by the bully. Now, consequently, excuse me, they are unable to sustain the good life circumstances that they've been building. So what happens is they get about halfway done with achieving their goal, and along comes the bully and abuser, the villain, and they take the money, they take the car, they take the whatever the positive energy that you have going and momentum, and they destroy it. And so the person who's in the minion role is unable to sustain that good life long enough to achieve a state of flourishing. And what happens then is that this person who's in the minion role ends up becoming the servant caretaker of the villain, who you could also describe as a king baby, right? And it turns out that they end up in this like parasite host relationship where the villain is entitled like a king, and that draws the other person. They try to shape the other person, the minion, into being a servant to them. And when the minion ever starts to get in touch with who they really are and wants to get out of that relationship, the villain starts portraying themselves as this helpless little child, right? This incompetent boob who wouldn't be able to make it if it wasn't for the care of the servant. And this draws out that caretaking side of the minion, who then wants to take care of the helpless little child. And together they end up repeating this vicious cycle over and over again. The king baby and the servant caretaker. Now, you might not like to hear that. That sounds controversial. It doesn't make people look good to say something like that about them. But if you look at their behavioral patterns, you'll notice what I'm talking about. And what you'll see is that the person that's in that minion role, and they are roles, by the way, roles have rules. So this is why it's not a good idea to try to change someone's behavior without first trying to change their character, because their behavior is just an acting out of, it's a rule of the role. So if I want to act like a superhero, I'm going to put on a superhero character, right? And if I want to act like a villain, I'm going to put on a villain costume, let's say. So the person needs to develop an identity that is conducive to initiating and sustaining a positive change. And this is the heroic character. So the heroic character is the person who is capable of initiating and sustaining a positive change. Positive meaning it'll help people get their human needs met. And then finally there's the sidekick, who is like the hero in the sense that they will not allow themselves to be pushed around by a villain. However, the sidekick is lacking in transformational leadership, so they're unlikely to take the risk of creating that change on their own. They usually look to the hero to do that. So you're going to need to learn how to deal with these different types of change agents, and I'm going to talk about that in our next video.